For us over in The Hague with a guest to tell us more about the proceedings as they kick off today. Well, not one guest, more than one. But Leanne, good morning. It's over to you.
Sakina, thank you very much. Apologies for that. We were just trying to get the mic over. We realised my arm's not long enough to stretch it across. So we've sorted all of that out. But we've moved inside to where the event is going to be taking place. And as you have been mentioning, we're here in The Hague. We're at the World Forum, and this is where One Young World is taking place. It's an incredible initiative, but I'm not going to tell you more about it because I am privileged enough to have the founders of One Young World with us to tell us where the idea all came from and why. Why bring the youth together in one room to try find solutions to peace in this world? Maybe the answer lies there. So please welcome Mary Robertson and David Jones, as I mentioned, the founders of One Young World. It is so good to be here, and thank you for your time. Thanks for having us, broadcasting from this place.
Thank you. So to answer your question, Kate and I created One Young World really because we felt there was a huge lack of leadership from the senior leaders in the world, and there was a unique generation of young people who technology had made the most empowered, the most responsible, and above all, the most able to drive change in the world. And if we could just give them a bigger platform, that could help lead the world to a better place. And I think sadly today, you could argue that the senior leaders are doing a worse job than they were a decade ago, and that's why we take such hope from these amazing young leaders to sort out the things that the senior leaders haven't been able to.
Well, that was one message that I picked up quite loudly yesterday, was that the senior leaders are not doing a good job, and we need to create better leaders and not follow in their footsteps. I just called you Mary Robinson. Now
I would love to. I would love to be Mary Robinson.
It would be but she's speaking, isn't she?
Yes, she absolutely
she's
is.
One of the speakers.
But given that you and I come from the same place, I'm Kate Robertson.
I know, Kate. I'll keep the Kate part. It's
cool.
It's much better. Apologies for that. Kate, South African, and you know, when you started speaking yesterday, and I heard the accent coming, I was like, okay, so we've got one of our own.
I'm home.
That's the organisers. So how did the idea come about? How did the two of you meet, come together, and decide to create this major platform?
I met David when David was, I think, 22. So he was a junior to my very senior person. We were working for J. Walter Thompson in Europe, and he was incredibly impressive then, and then he kind of got more impressive, and then eventually was my boss. And he was the CEO of one of the big advertising and marketing networks, and I was working for him then. And he was keen on looking at purpose for the business that we were running. And One Young World was one of the ideas that he looked at but loved. But for me, it was about looking at South Africa and looking at the South African story and what happens when just one great leader emerges, yes, from prison, just one. And I've just always felt, and we've come to believe it and to be able to start to prove it with these youngsters, it does take just one, but it takes a leader. And so, you know, Madiba's always the kind of the guiding spirit, but of course we had the privilege over the last 8 years to have Mr. Anand in his place. In the early years, the first 2 years, Desmond Tutu. So for me, the route into the South African story of global amazing leadership is really one of the things that keeps us going, I think.
I absolutely love what you said. It just takes one good leader to make a change, and that's very profound, because there are 1,800 and something amazing
1,878.
I know, and you keep emphasizing that 78, which is important, because
it could be the one.
Exactly. That is exactly what I was going to say. But they come here, they're chosen from their respective countries, which I mentioned 193 countries. Why? What happens here when they get here? What's the idea behind this?
So we have an annual summit, but the summit, we always say, is an event that's part of a movement. So it's only part of what happens. There are huge numbers of caucuses across the year, and the most important thing is this is just a kind of focal point to both report back on what has happened in the previous year and be a catalyst to all the things that are going to happen over the next 12 months. So it's bringing together the most brilliant young leaders in the world to collaborate, to share ideas, to work out how they can help each other with their projects, and to create this amazing momentum and movement that can drive change in the world.
Yeah, okay. So Kate, apparently the mic isn't working so well. So all of that, trying to get your mic working, I am going to scooch right close to you so we can speak into this mic. The kind of ambassadors and the kind of people that they're going to be listening to here today, I've seen the agenda, and I cannot wait to hear from them, because the wealth of knowledge that's going to be imparted to them is amazing. But perhaps you can give us a glimpse into the kind of themes and the different speakers that they're going to hear
Well,
from.
the themes are chosen each year by what we call the global consultation process, where we consult with what will now be 10,000 ambassadors around the world. They tell us what they want to hear about and what they want to talk about. So that's an important thing, because you won't see that in another conference where it's actually that age group bossing the park and telling what they want to hear about. I think there are two things that stand out for me over the next 3 days. One is that with the terrible IPCC report on climate change last week, massive that we've got Christiana Figueres here. You know, she's one of the architects, but definitely the builder of the Paris Agreement, and she's actually here. So I think the learning you can take from Christiana on how to get a global agreement together and how to bring people with you is just beyond. You will not even see that in the best business school. It is amazing. But I think also, and very painfully, there is a very big session on young leaders against sexual violence, because sexual violence is of the age. And Professor Yunus and his team were saying to me last night, we're so glad that you've taken this on big time this time, because what they are seeing with the refugees that they are working with all over the world, it's not just being a refugee, it's just that these people have been sexually violated, which is horrendous. Terrible thing to talk about, got to be dealt with. People have to know it, they have to know what's going on. And of course here we have this week, I think there are 27 refugees in that delegation.
That's incredible. That's something very close to my heart, and I'm glad that that's getting onto the platform, because I do a lot of work with the UNHCR as well. So to listen to this and be a part of it, I think it's going to be great, just to bring the plight of the refugee forward. But the young girls that are being sexually molested and abused all around the world, in fact, we're going to have 2 of them in the next hour that are going to come and talk to us here as well. But I mean, we talk about this, and whether we talk about the Me Too campaign, whether we talk about the refugee crisis, it is a crisis that is affecting everybody. And I'm so glad to see so many young girls represented here. It's important to give that voice out to countries where perhaps they don't necessarily have a voice, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're here in The Hague, the International City of Peace and Justice, and I think justice is one of the huge things that's lacking in the world at the moment. And if you can look at injustice, probably refugees is the area where it's the most injustice, because their plight and what's happening to them, and as we were talking about, the fact that they are the most prone and the most likely to be victims of sexual violence is just appalling. But the way you can start is actually by talking about it and by looking to drive change. And we actually were the first major global organisation to parade the refugee flag after the Olympics, and it will always be something very important to us. And I think if you look back 5 or 6 years ago, that was when the One Young World delegates were being incredibly vocal about the whole area of refugees, almost before the rest of the world had caught up.
Yeah. Now, just as we wrap it up, The Hague, being here in The Hague, I realised the significance of it the more I stood there last night at the opening ceremony, where the Queen opened it. We heard Bob Geldof speaking, both of you were addressing us, but we also spoke about finding peaceful solutions in a place like this without war, and actually coming together and talking about it and moving forward. It's quite ironic at a time like this, when there are so many wars and there is so much devastation around the world, that we again find ourselves in a place where dialogue is perhaps the cause or the greatest way to find peace.
As we were saying last night, there's no peace without justice. Cannot happen. Look in South Africa, look at Truth and Reconciliation. Was it a perfect process? No, but look what it did for the country. And when you get into the depth, and I hope you have a chance whilst you're here, of the institutions at The Hague and what they're actually doing, the complexity of things like war crimes trials for rape, the Yazidi women, the work that is being done by the legal fraternity and those justices that you saw last night is just the most important work in the world. It's not recognized enough, but we wanted to be sure that these young leaders from every country in the world know that there is a court that there is a place where you will get justice. It can actually happen. But vital, vital work going on here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be a part of it. We are so happy to be broadcasting this and getting the message across, because the leaders of the future are here, gathered together, and we thank you for bringing them all together. So, David Jones, Kate Robertson, thank you very, very much. Look forward to being with you over the next couple of days, and good luck, because I know you're about to open everything.
Thank you, South Africa. Thank you, my homeland. Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much. All right, so this is what you can expect, and I think it's going to be exceptionally uplifting, but very emotional. I've seen some of the videos from previous years where the delegates were crying, and some of these stories that you get to hear here are just life-changing. So we hope we can bring some of those stories to you. Let's take a break here on the program. We'll see you again.